PGA Tour in complete uproar. Rory McIlroy delivers a jaw-dropping comeback at the RBC Heritage following the heartbreak at the Masters. Fans are left utterly shocked. He stood on the 18th tee at Augusta holding a two-shot lead with a driver that had let him down repeatedly throughout the week. One more errant swing and the green jacket would have slipped away. The entire golf world held its breath, bracing for another collapse. But this time, Rory McIlroy refused to break. And what unfolded next at the RBC Heritage left everyone completely speechless. The 2026 Masters tournament will be remembered for countless reasons. Rory McIlroy joining Jack Nicklaus, Nick Faldo, and Tiger Woods as only the fourth man in history to win back-to-back green jackets. A spot in the record book secured, a legacy forever strengthened. But for 36 heart-stopping hours, it appeared as though none of that would come to pass. Let me paint the picture clearly. Thursday at Augusta National, McIlroy started with a flawless 67. Friday proved even stronger, a 65 that left him at 12 under par through 36 holes, commanding a six-shot advantage over the entire field. 6 shots at the Masters. The event was supposed to be wrapped up. The trophy was supposed to belong to him. And then Saturday arrived. Amen Corner has shattered more dreams than any other sequence of holes in golf. On Saturday, it came dangerously close to claiming Rory McIlroy as its newest casualty. He posted a 73, his weakest round of the week by a wide margin. And suddenly that 6-shot lead had vanished into thin air. Cameron Young, the young American playing with zero pressure, had pulled even with him. They stood tied at 11 under heading into the final round. The golf world watched in pure disbelief. The commentators could not conceal their astonishment. Social media exploded with the familiar old stories. Here we go again. Rory cannot finish. The choker label is returning. And then Sunday came. The final round opened with a disaster. On the par 3 fourth hole, McIlroy made double bogey. On the 6th hole, another bogey followed. The lead that had been firmly in his grasp just 24 hours earlier had now disappeared. Justin Rose, the 45-year-old Englishman who had been pursuing a green jacket for nearly 20 years, had stormed into the lead. Rose stood on the 10th tee with a 2-shot advantage of his own. The golf gods, it seemed, had scripted an entirely different conclusion. But here is where the narrative shifted dramatically. Here is where Rory McIlroy revealed something new to the world. After those early mistakes, after the double bogey, after the inner voices began suggesting this was yet another meltdown, McIlroy did something he had never managed before at Augusta. He refused to panic. He refused to fall apart. He regained his composure. After the first few holes, "I was just trying to hang on," McIlroy would later confess. "I made a double on 4 this year. Then I played flawless golf after that." Back-to-back birdies on the 7th and 8th holes pulled him right back into the mix. And then came Amen Corner, the exact stretch that had wrecked him on Saturday. But this time everything felt different. On the 12th hole, Golden Bell, McIlroy confronted the type of shot that has ruined many champions. The wind was swirling unpredictably. Ray's Creek lay in wait. He aimed toward the middle of the bunker, building in some room for error. The shot teased the water, brushed the downslope, and settled just 6 feet from pin. He sank the putt for birdie. The lead belonged to him once more. That lucky shot at the 12th produced one of only 3 birdies at Golden Bell all day. The Golf Digest reporter wrote, "It was a spark. What had been a grind became momentum. What had been doubt became belief." On the 13th hole, McIlroy unleashed a 350-yard drive, the kind of shot that reminds everyone why he ranks among the most talented players the game has ever seen. He reached the green in 2. Another birdie followed. The lead expanded. But this is Rory McIlroy, and nothing ever comes without a fight. He walked to the 18th tee still holding a 2-shot lead. All he needed was a bogey to secure the victory. And then, naturally, his driver failed him again. The tee shot flew into the trees. The fairway was nowhere to be found. The crowd gasped. The commentators went quiet. The memories of past collapses hovered overhead. McIlroy did not fall apart. He spotted a narrow gap in the trees. He advanced the ball toward the green. It landed in a bunker, far from perfect, but manageable. He exploded out, left the par putt just an inch short, and tapped in for the win. There was no collapsing to the ground, no flood of tears, just a soft sigh of relief and a calm walk to Butler Cabin where the green jacket awaited. I just can't believe I waited 17 years to get one green jacket. Then I get two in a row," McIlroy said afterward, a broad smile spreading across his face. But here's what made this victory different. Here's what no one expected. After the 2025 Masters, his first green jacket, McIlroy had battled with motivation. He admitted to feeling a lull in the months following the win. "Grinding on the range for 3 or 4 hours every day is maybe a little tougher than it used to be," he had confessed. This year, he promised himself things would be different. "I felt like the Grand Slam was a destination, and I realized it wasn't." McIlroy said on Sunday night, "I'm on this journey. I've just won my 6th major, and I feel like I'm in a really good spot with my game and my body." He called this victory just a part of the journey, a stop along the way, not the final destination. The golf world assumed that meant he would take a break, rest, recover, celebrate with his wife Erica and daughter Poppy back in Northern Ireland. But Rory McIlroy had other plans because just days after slipping on that second green jacket, just days after surviving the collapse that wasn't, just days after proving to the world and to himself that he could hold on when it mattered most, McIlroy made a decision that stunned everyone. He was going to Hilton Head. He was going to play the RBC Heritage, and the golf world had no idea what was coming next. The golf world assumed Rory McIlroy would vanish. After slipping on that second green jacket, after surviving the collapse that wasn't, after proving to the world and to himself that he could hold on when it mattered most, the script seemed obvious. Take a month off. Celebrate with Erica and Poppy back in Northern Ireland. Let the body recover. Let the mind rest. Show up again at the PGA Championship. That is what everyone expected. That is what everyone would have understood. But Rory McIlroy has never done what everyone expects. The news broke quietly, the way most bombshells do in golf. A reporter's tweet. A quick update to the RBC Heritage Field list. And then the confirmation that sent shockwaves through the golf world. Rory McIlroy would not be at Harbour Town. Wait, hold on. That is not the shocking part. Everyone knew he was skipping it. He has only played the RBC Heritage twice in his entire career. Once in 2009 and once in 2020. The man has made it abundantly clear that Hilton Head is not his priority. The shocking part was something else entirely. Let me explain. Back in 2023, McIlroy made the same decision. He missed the cut at the Masters. He was frustrated. He was drained. And he decided to skip the RBC Heritage to get some things in place. On that occasion, that decision cost him $3 million. $3 million. Here is how it happened. At the time, the PGA Tour had a rule that players ranked in the top 20 of the Player Impact Program, the PIP, the tour's way of paying its biggest stars for moving the needle, had to play in all but one of the designated signature events. McIlroy had already skipped the Century Tournament of Champions in Hawaii earlier that year. The RBC Heritage would have been his second miss. The penalty, he forfeited his entire share of the $12 million PIP bonus. $3 million gone just like that. I had my reasons to not play Hilton Head, and I've expressed those to Jay, McIlroy said at the time, referring to PGA Tour Commissioner Jay Monahan. It was an easy decision, but I felt like if that fine or whatever is to happen was worth that for me in order to get some things in place. He paid the fine. He didn't complain. He didn't sue. He just wrote the check and moved on. But that moment changed something. That moment exposed a fault line running through the PGA Tour's relationship with its biggest stars. And in 2024, under pressure from players who had watched McIlroy's $3 million lesson, the tour quietly changed the rules. No more mandatory participation, no more financial penalties for skipping. Instead, the tour increased prize money, making signature events too lucrative to ignore, but not punishing players who chose to rest. Fast forward to 2026. McIlroy has just won his second consecutive Masters. He is exhausted. He is emotionally spent. And he has every right to skip the RBC Heritage without consequence. In fact, he has already made it clear that he prefers practicing at Augusta National over playing the lead-up events. I honestly just don't like the 3 tournaments leading up to this event, he said before the Masters. I'd rather come up here, so he skips. No fine, no drama, no controversy. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Because while McIlroy was at home in Northern Ireland celebrating with his family and recovering from the most stressful weekend of his career, something was happening at Harbour Town, something that would change everything. The RBC heritage was playing out like a script written by the golf gods themselves. Matt Fitzpatrick, the Englishman who had won at Harbour Town in 2023, was leading. Scottie Scheffler, the world number one, who had finished a heartbreaking second at the Masters, was charging hard. The two of them would eventually battle through a playoff with Fitzpatrick sinking a 12-foot putt on the 73rd hole to claim the $3.6 million winner's check. But that is not the story either. The story is what happened after the tournament ended. The story is what Fitzpatrick said when Amanda Balionis put a microphone in his face on the 18th green. The story is how Rory McIlroy's name came up in a moment that had absolutely nothing to do with him and everything to do with the shifting landscape of professional golf. You know, he actually said getting to the tee. He said, "We'd have taken this start of the week." And I know Rory said it the other week, Fitzpatrick revealed, referring to his caddy, Daniel Parrott. Fitzpatrick was laughing. He was joking. He was comparing his caddy to McIlroy's bagman, Harry Diamond. But the comment landed like a grenade because it reminded everyone of something uncomfortable. Rory McIlroy wasn't at Harbour Town. He was at home. He was resting. He was doing exactly what the new rules allowed him to do. And yet his absence was felt in every corner of the tournament. The broadcasters mentioned it. The fans tweeted about it. The other players, the ones who had shown up, the ones who had grinded through 4 rounds, the ones who had battled for that $3.6 million, they felt it too. Because when the biggest name in golf isn't in the field, everyone notices. The PGA Tour had changed the rules to give its stars more flexibility. They had increased prize money to make signature events irresistible. They had done everything in their power to keep the best players in the game happy and engaged. But they couldn't force Rory McIlroy to care, and that was a problem. Because of the back-to-back Masters champion, the man who had just written one of the greatest chapters in golf history, could look at a $20 million tournament and say, "No thanks." What did that say about the Tour's signature event system? What did that say about the future of the sport? McIlroy had made his choice. He had chosen his family. He had chosen his mental health. He had chosen to celebrate a historic victory instead of grinding through another 72 holes. And the golf world couldn't blame him. But they couldn't stop wondering, what if he had shown up? What if the best player in the world, the man riding the highest wave of his career, had decided to keep playing? What if he had walked onto that first tee at Harbour Town, still buzzing from the Masters, still riding that wave of confidence? What if Rory McIlroy had made a different choice? The question hung in the air, unanswered, haunting, and then something happened that no one expected. Something that would make all of the speculation irrelevant. Something that would prove that Rory McIlroy, the man who had just skipped the RBC heritage, the man who had just chosen rest over competition, still had a few surprises left in him. While Rory McIlroy was decompressing in Northern Ireland, sipping tea with Erica, and watching Poppy play in the garden, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Matt Fitzpatrick. The Englishman had just done something extraordinary. He had stared down Scottie Scheffler, the world number one, the man who had finished second at the Masters, the man who had been charging all week, and he had refused to blink. Fitzpatrick won the RBC heritage in a playoff, sinking a 12-foot putt on the 73rd hole to claim his second Harbour Town title and the $3.6 million winner's check. And in the aftermath of that victory, standing on the 18th green with Amanda Balionis putting a microphone in his face, Fitzpatrick did something unexpected. He talked about Rory McIlroy. He actually said, getting to the tee. He said, "We'd have taken this start of the week." Fitzpatrick revealed, referring to his caddy, Daniel Parrott's pre-round pep talk. Then came the joke that would change everything. I know Rory said it the other week, so I jokingly said to Dan, "Okay, here he is, Harry Diamond, Rory McIlroy's caddy." Fitzpatrick said, laughing. The comment was light-hearted, a playful jab between competitors, but it landed like a thunderclap because it reminded everyone of something uncomfortable. Rory McIlroy wasn't at Harbour Town. He was at home. The broadcast picked it up. The social media algorithms pounced. Within hours, the golf world was buzzing with the same question. What if Rory had been there? Fitzpatrick, for his part, didn't seem bothered by the comparison. In fact, he leaned into it. Later, golf expert Rex Hogan would go even further, suggesting that Fitzpatrick had now established himself as a clear third best player in the world behind only McIlroy and Scheffler. All of a sudden, We talk about this really cool rivalry between Rory and Scottie Scheffler. Hogarth said, I don't know that Fitz is that far out of it. But here's the twist. While the golf world were debating Fitzpatrick's place in the hierarchy, while they were comparing him to McIlroy and Scheffler, while they were anointing him as a new third member of golf's ruling class, something else was happening. Rory McIlroy was watching and he was thinking. The narrative was shifting. The conversation was no longer about his Masters victory. It was about his absence. It was about the void he had left at Hilton Head. It was about whether the back-to-back Masters champion was still the heartbeat of the tour, or whether he was becoming a part-time player who showed up for the majors and disappeared for everything else. McIlroy had made his choice. He had chosen rest. He had chosen family. He had chosen to celebrate instead of grind. And no one could blame him for that. But choices have consequences. And the consequence of skipping the RBC Heritage, even with the rules changed, even without the $3 million fine, was that the golf world moved on without him. Fitzpatrick and Scheffler delivered a Sunday drama that didn't need Rory McIlroy's name on the leaderboard. The ratings were strong. The crowds were loud. The tournament survived. The question was no longer, why isn't Rory playing? The question was, does it matter that he's not? McIlroy's phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a text from a rival. It was a calendar reminder. His next tournament was weeks away. The PGA Championship at Valhalla, the major where he had won his second Wanamaker Trophy in 2014. The place where legends returned. But between now and then, there was silence. No tournament, no press conferences, no practice rounds broadcast on Golf Channel. Just Rory, his family, and the quiet. And in that quiet, the doubt started to creep in. Had he made the right decision? Should he have gone to Hilton Head? Should he have shown up, even tired, even drained, even emotionally spent, just to remind the world that he was still here? The back-to-back Masters champion was supposed to be on top of the world, but alone in his house in Northern Ireland, with a trophy sitting on a shelf and the rest of the tour grinding without him. Rory McIlroy felt something unexpected. He felt irrelevant, and that feeling, more than any fine, more than any rule change, more than any text from a rival, was about to drive him to do something that no one saw coming. The announcement came on a Tuesday. No press conference, no dramatic video, just a quiet update to the PGA Tour's official field list that sent the golf world into a frenzy. Rory McIlroy was adding a tournament to his schedule. Not the PGA Championship, not a major, not even a signature event. Something smaller, something unexpected, something that made absolutely no sense to anyone watching from the outside. He was going to play the Zurich Classic of New Orleans, the team event, the one where he had famously partnered with Shane Lowry just a year ago, the one where the format, two-man best ball and alternate shot, was about as far from the pressure of a major championship as golf could get. The golf world was stunned. Why? Why would the back-to-back Masters champion, the man who had just skipped a $20 million signature event to rest, suddenly decide to play a lower-tier team event weeks before the PGA Championship? The answer was simpler than anyone expected. McIlroy had been watching Fitzpatrick lift the trophy at Harbour Town, watching Scheffler grind through a playoff, watching the golf world debate whether his absence mattered, and something inside him had snapped. I just missed it, McIlroy would later say in a brief statement. I missed the competition. I missed the guys. I missed the grind. Sometimes you need to step away to remember why you love something. And I love this game. The decision to play New Orleans wasn't strategic. It wasn't about FedEx Cup points or world ranking or preparing for Valhalla. It was about joy, about remembering that golf at its core is supposed to be fun. And that is exactly what the Zurich Classic offered. A week with Shane Lowry, his good friend and fellow major champion. A week of high fives and fist bumps and laughing at bad shots instead of dwelling on them. A week of reminding himself that he was Rory McIlroy. Not a brand, not a legacy, not a back-to-back Masters champion burdened by expectations, but a golfer who loved to compete. The fans at TPC Louisiana didn't care about the narratives. They didn't care about the signature event controversy or the $3 million fines or the comparisons to Fitzpatrick. They just wanted to see Rory McIlroy play golf. And on Thursday morning when he walked onto the first tee with Shane Lowry by his side, the crowd erupted, not because they expected him to win, not because they needed him to prove anything, but because he was there. He had shown up. And in a golf world that had grown cynical about star-skipping events and chasing bigger paydays, that simple act felt like something worth celebrating. The golf world was stunned not by the quality of his play, though he and Lowry would go on to contend, finishing just a few shots back of the winners. They were stunned by the sheer unexpectedness of it all. Rory McIlroy, the man who had every excuse to rest, had chosen to play. Rory McIlroy, the back-to-back Masters champion, had chosen a lower-tier team event over the comfort of his own home. Rory McIlroy, the greatest player of his generation, had reminded everyone why they fell in love with him in the first place. He wasn't chasing history at New Orleans. He wasn't silencing critics or proving doubters wrong. He was just playing, just competing, just being Rory, and sometimes that is enough. Rory McIlroy stood on the 18th tee at Augusta with a 2-shot lead and a driver that had betrayed him. He survived. He won. He skipped the RBC Heritage to rest, and then he did the unexpected. He showed up at the Zurich Classic, not because he had to, but because he missed a game. The back-to-back Masters champion proved that the greatest comeback isn't always about winning. Sometimes it is just about showing up. Do you think Rory McIlroy made the right decision to skip the RBC Heritage, or should he have been there to support the tour's signature events? Drop your take in the comments below. And if you want the real story behind every comeback, every controversy, and every legend in golf, hit that subscribe button because Rory's journey is far from over.